Good morning, everyone.
It's flawed.
My fine ceasefire phone says 10 o'clock. I want to welcome everyone here to our board meeting today. At this point, make sure that your cell phones are on silent or off or whatever the case may be. I also want to remind everyone that this meeting is live streamed. And we are here at the Mississippi Department of Education, the Board of Education room, January 16th, 2025. It's 10 o'clock a.m. We're at the Central High School building, which is the home of the Mississippi Department of Education, 359 Northwest Street, Jackson, Mississippi. At this time, I'll call our meeting to order, and I know we have Mr. Pruitt, who is out sick today, and we have our esteemed colleague from the Hattiesburg area, Lamar County area, Mr. Miller, on Zoom this morning. Matt, if you can give us your location, please, sir.
Yes, good morning. I'm in Hattiesburg, Mississippi.
Very well. Thank you, sir. I got to talking and do the pledge. So if you will rise, I'm going to do the pledge and the prayer today on my own. So we'll go from there. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If you will, pray with me. Most gracious Heavenly Father, thank you for this time to come together on such a beautiful day. As we move through this agenda today, keep in our hearts and minds the fact that we are dealing with the children of Mississippi, so that our decisions will make sure we benefit them, their progress, and the progress of their families in our great state. It's in your Son's name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
You have the agenda in front of you. Is any changes we need to make on it? Actually, I've skipped, but we'll get that right too. Seeing none, all in favor? Got a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion.
Second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Going back 1 degree, we also changed the agenda. You have the minutes in front of you as well. We've had those to review. May I have a motion to accept them?
So moved.
Ms. Werner, Bill Jacobs. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Gene Cook has with us today. I know that our friends from Long Beach are stuck on the highway. Clinton knows the back way, so we're going to go ahead and move forward with this part of our program. And Clinton, glad to have you with us.
Good morning, Mr. East, Dr. Evans, and state board members. It is my honor to present to you the board recognitions for January. Today, we are honoring Mississippi's National Elementary and Secondary Education Act Distinguished Schools for 2025. Each year, the MDE Office of Federal Programs nominates 2 schools that meet or exceed the Distinguished Schools Award criteria. These schools must either demonstrate closure of achievement gaps between student groups for 2 or more consecutive years, demonstrate exceptional student performance and academic growth for 2 or more consecutive years, or show excellence in serving special populations of students. So first, we're going to recognize Northside Elementary School in the Clinton Public School District. And representing the school is Principal Mandy Ambrose and Leslie Alexander, the former assistant principal at Northside and the current federal programs director in Clinton. Please join Mr. East and Dr. Evans at the front of the boardroom. Northside Elementary School was chosen as an ESEA National Distinguished School for closing achievement gaps between student groups. Northside Elementary School has maintained an A rating for 7 consecutive years. The school achieved the lowest gap in reading proficiency in the state between special education students and non-special education students. Northside also achieved the second lowest gap in math proficiency in the state between special education students and non-special education students. Additionally, the school met both state reading and math goals as well as improved reading and math state goals. Northside Elementary School is recognized today for successfully using its ESEA federal funds to improve educational outcomes for all students. Congratulations to Northside Elementary School. Ms. Ambrose, you're welcome to make remarks at this time.
Are truly honored to be recognized today. Thank you for having us here. This award is a testament to the collective work of our entire school community, who believes that every student, no matter their background or their ability, deserves access to high quality instruction and the extra support that they need to meet their needs. It reflects the commitment of our staff, but also shines a spotlight on our students' hard work and their perseverance. We understand that achieving success is not just about our core curriculum, but it also requires extra support from those services like special education services and our EL services, interventions, dyslexia therapy, and all of those things that we are able to offer to our students to help meet their unique needs. We remain motivated, knowing that with every step that we take, we come closer to offering an inclusive and supportive educational experience for all students. Every student has potential, and our goal is for every kid who enters the door of Northside to be able to reach their potential. I'm thankful for the unwavering support of our families, students, staff, and obviously our community. Together, we'll continue to strive for success and hopefully make a lasting impact on every single student who darkens our doors. Thank you.
We do know that Long Beach is on the way. Yeah, and Andy, y'all can go to work now if you want to, really. Good to see y'all. And as soon as Long Beach gets here, we'll just kind of stop where we are and make that presentation. Superintendent, you've got a lot of good stuff to talk about today. We're ready to listen.
All right. There, here. We'll start out with I believe the first one is just our normal report, and then we'll come back because we have our strategic plan a little later in the agenda. So this has been another busy month, even though it's been shorter. Started out, obviously, the legislative session has gotten kicked off. Started out January the 7th. We've been, Ms. Holly, Spivey, and myself, and everyone here have been, obviously, we're very busy beforehand, but we kicked it in overdrive about 3 times faster once the session gets going. So I appreciate the support of all of our people, specifically Ms. Spivey, but also I would be remiss if I didn't mention how quickly the department, how important it is that we move quickly to get the information that we need for our lawmakers, and our department does that because it's this time of the year time is of the essence, and we obviously work over the course of the entire year leading up to many of the initiatives are tied back into the session. So we have obviously this session's a 3-month session. Last year was a 4-month session because it was an election cycle. So we've got a lot of work to get done in a short period of time. So again, every legislator received a copy of this, the Mississippi Succeeds piece. I thought it's awesome. So kudos to Ms. Cook and her office. They do great work. The graphics in here are very, very high quality. I was very pleased. This represents not only the body of work, but the presentation represents our state very, very well, this work. So thank you so much. They received a copy, like I said earlier. We also had the Senate and House Appropriations budget hearings. Those are both checked off the list, if you will. Had a meeting, a CTE dual credit programming meeting with legislators as well as representatives from Accelerate, Courtney Taylor, Dr. Taylor, the executive director there, Etowah Community College President, Dr. Jay Allen, Mr. Farrell, Mr. Robinson, Ms. Spivey was there, as well as both House and Senate workforce development chairs, and got some plans moving forward throughout the summer with incorporating them in a task force, bringing them into the task force that we've already We already have created one in our office at the department, but expanding that and including them in it as well. And some of the pieces are kind of redefining, outlining the K-12 world and CTE and workforce versus the community college, and it all ties back into the structuring of some processes that we'll talk about a little later when we do the strategic plan piece. Some of the partnership and stakeholder meetings we had, you know, last session there was a Senate bill that went through that put a requirement for driver's education into law. So met with Ms. Spivey and I met with Commissioner Tyndall to work through some of that. It was put into place, but obviously we have to, this session, you find the funding for it. So, and that is not a, that's a rather expensive endeavor. So we're trying to be very cost-effective in our processes and creative as well. But I will tell you, you know, traffic accidents are ranked very high on the cause of, on the list of reasons for our young people, the loss of life for our young people. So it's very important that we focus in that area. Met with Dr. Edney, I don't know, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, and we're also working to partner with some awareness pieces with how we can do that with the Department of Health, especially with our younger students as they come through, just some awareness campaign pieces. So excited about, I'll tell you, I've been very pleased with other agencies and how they've wanted to partner with us. But I've also been very intentional on reaching out and trying to make that happen. And they're reciprocating. So there's a lot of positives that are going on there. Also had a meeting with Excel and Ed, and look, because one of the four pieces of one of the four initiatives we're looking at hashing out to push out next year is expanding our current literacy initiative and looking at some combination of grades 4 through 8. The body of work will look a little different, obviously, for grades 4 and 5 versus 6 through 8. But that's a push we have seen where our students we get to a point and then we start dipping when we get to our middle school grades. So we've got to extend that literacy initiative. And also that ties back in with the math initiative, and we're talking through these processes with them, some work they're doing in other states. Actually, Dr. Oakley and Dr. Burke, who previously at the department for quite some time, work with them now, and they're being instrumental in helping us work through some of these processes. I'm excited about having them because they were also involved in some of the development pieces of what we currently do. So it's bringing all those people to the table. It's very important to me that we operate that way. Also, had a meeting with NCE and putting together the piece of the collaboration piece for the Mississippi Superintendent's Institute that we will be rolling out. It was actually the initial meeting of the large group that came together and started laying out what some of those expectations are for the Mississippi specific modules. This meeting was a planning for the smaller work group moving forward. And our goal is to have that institute in place, ready to go in July. So our new superintendents that come in will be able to roll directly into it. And that will lead to a required certification in the state. And in that process, we're working to try to ensure that there's reciprocity because there's several other states that require superintendent certifications. So as people evolve through their career, that's a bonus. That's a real bonus for those of us that have been superintendents for quite some time to go through that training piece. It's just another way for me to kind of encourage people that may not be required based on the parameters to participate in it. So had the opportunity, a couple speaking engagements. One, spoke at MEC's Capital Day. That was I appreciate Mr. Scott Waller, the president of MEC, for inviting me to do that. Huge room full of business and industry leaders. And I think I felt as though the comments were well received. They seem to be. I like to think that we're on the same page as far as our goals at the department and our understanding of what the workforce needs are across the state. And I feel as though they're in line with MEC and the business and industry leaders. And what I would tell you is we're pushing to even align that even more. But not only just align, but something we have to do is clearly define those processes across the state. So, because right now they're kind of meshed together, and in some places there's not a real clear understanding of whose responsibility what is, so it becomes everybody's responsibility, and we're not necessarily streamlining our resources. So that's That's part of that. That's also part of that task force I talked about earlier. Couple media pieces was on Super Talk that morning of MEC Capital Day. Had a Clarion Ledger. We had an interview there on that revolved around choice and educational priorities in this legislative session. I also visited the Achievement School District. I was there yesterday, I believe. That was a good visit. Afterwards, after the board meeting, we have a celebration for early learning childhood. I want to invite everyone to participate, but in the event you can't, I want to read a couple of very important pieces, just some facts about that programming, so that we can give that the body of work that's taking place in that programming the due respect that it deserves. Because that's the last 10 years. There's been a lot of heavy lifting that's taken place to get our young people to where they need to be to start school, for when they start school. So again, this is the 10-year anniversary. The program will be at 1 this afternoon. So again, please make plans to come by. But just a couple of brief points. The Early Learning Collaborative Act helped launch the office with 1 staff member. That was 10 years ago. It's now one of MDE's largest offices with 72 staff members and 46 contractors. The team has gone from managing somewhere in the neighborhood of around $3 million in the beginning and around 11 early learning collaboratives to more than $47 million currently in state funds, as well as 40 collaboratives and 24 state investment pre-K programs, as well as 20 blended pre-K classrooms. That's quite the expansion. That's quite the expansion. But one of the pieces that drives home the impact that I think was very substantial is, originally there were about 1,400 students that were impacted. Currently, there's 8,300 students that are impacted. That's a big deal. That's 8,300 students, and you'll see in the presentation of the strategic plan later, the gains that our MDE state-funded program, pre-K programs, the gains of those students and the levels of readiness of those students versus other programs, and it's a huge positive for Mississippi. Just a couple other notable accomplishments. Our programming they consistently earn national recognition as one of only 5 states to meet all 10 of the quality standards for pre-K programs through a national association, as well as the implementation of the Mississippi Beginnings pre-K curriculum, extending the early learning standards to include infants and toddlers, because we know learning begins at birth. They're literally, we have the children in our state, they range from being read to when they're in the womb before they get here to those that really, when they come into our schools, have never really had a book read to them. So, and that's why I always say the most difficult job in the entire K-12 world is the kindergarten teacher, because we expect he or she to get them all, the ones that are where they came in higher, and then those we got to get them all to that level of readiness that we've defined is the expectation moving forward. So that's a very difficult job, as well as implementing free pre-K endorsements for teachers. So I just wanted to read that because I wanted to outline. Lots of times we get so involved in our work that we don't step back. I'm the world's worst at this. You don't step back and look at the accomplishments that you made. But, and I know in that office, Dr. Jill Dent, who has been leading that from the get-go, from previous 10 years, we appreciate her work so much from the bottom of my heart. And not just myself, but the state appreciates that work. So what I'd like to do is she was back in the back corner. She's going to be mad that I asked her to stand up and us clap for her. If y'all would do that.
Had I not gotten in the same traffic getting to the meeting today, I would have had some jokes from my colleague from Long Beach, knowing that the traffic was bad. Glad y'all made it up here, so we're going to let Gene Cook come back up and present this outstanding honor that you guys have received in the Bearcat Nation down there.
It's my honor to resume the presentation, the board recognitions. We are now going to recognize W.J. Quarles Elementary School as a national ESEA, National Distinguished School. And representing the school is Principal Sarah Sanson. Ms. Sanson, would you please join Mr. East and Dr. Evans at the front of the boardroom? W.J. Quarles Elementary School was chosen as an ESEA National Distinguished School for demonstrating exceptional student performance for 2 consecutive years. The school has been A-rated for 3 consecutive years. It achieved the highest reading increases in the state. The school has met both state reading and math goals, and the school met both improved reading and math state goals. And Quarles Elementary School is recognized today for successfully using its ESEA federal funds to improve educational outcomes for all students. Congratulations. Ms. Sanson, you are welcome to make remarks at this time.
Thank y'all so much. I had my notes. On behalf of W.J. Quarles Elementary, I am deeply honored and humbled to accept this esteemed recognition. This award is a testament to the incredible work of our entire school community, our dedicated teachers, our supportive staff, our engaged parents, and most importantly, our incredibly brilliant students. This distinguished school recognition is a reflection of our shared commitment to providing an exceptional education. We believe in creating a nurturing and inclusive environment where every student feels valued and empowered to reach their full potential. We are incredibly grateful for this recognition and will continue to strive for excellence in everything we do. We'll use this honor to inspire and motivate us to continue providing the highest quality education for all of our students. I would like to take a moment to thank Dr. Locke, our school district superintendent, Ms. Broussard, one of our assistant superintendents, and Mr. Reeves, Quarles Elementary lead teacher, for all of your support, encouragement, and guidance. Thank y'all so much. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
Let's do that.
Yep.
You guys want to come up, we'll get a picture right up here on the front. You won't have the pretty backdrop, I'm sorry. Stacks, they call it. It was rough today. Had it not been rough, I'd been, calling the superintendent out, but I know it was rough, so we're good.
I drove, my fault.
Congratulations. I would just like to say that, again, over the holidays, thanks to the staff for the work. Holly, I know that you and Lance and several others in the department are working across the street as we call it, so thank you for that work. I know the midnight oil is being burned almost on a daily basis now, so thank you for that, and to the staff for the work that you do each and every day. Kate is not here, senior year. I think we've got some senior activities going up in her world, so she wasn't able to attend, but we've got Crosby Parker with his presentation.
Good morning. I'm excited to report that since our last meeting, we've successfully started a new mentoring program with another local high school. We've now begun a program between West Harrison High School and North Gulfport Elementary. This marks a significant milestone in our goal to replicate the program throughout our state. And during this process, we've made sure to document all the different steps necessary in order to effectively replicate the program. This process of setting up began with identifying key points of contact within the school and the community. Specifically, district superintendents, principals, and counselors were extremely important in coordinating resources and ensuring the successful start. Our first step was to get superintendent approval and a signed MOU. This allows us the authority and backing to seek out contacts at respective high school and elementary schools. The elementary counselors then provide us with a list of 50 at-risk elementary students that could greatly benefit from being included in the program. On the other end, we have the high school counselors give us a list of recommended seniors that are leaders for their school, either through sports, academics, extracurriculars, or character. We then meet the high school students for an orientation where we set up contacts, explain the peer-to-peer model, the curriculum and session activities, and assure each one that we support them and that their efforts are making a difference. I can tell you, as one of the leads in this meeting, like all orientations, it started a little slow. But by the end, the mentors were clearly excited to meet their mentees and to get started. We made sure to take any notes and learn from any challenges that arose. Specifically, we dealt with complications on meeting space and transportation. In our home district, we had been given a dedicated mentoring room, while in the new district, we will be sharing a space with a computer lab where we will have to modify the space each day. Our home district was also more prepared when it came to student travel, and the new district, we had to create new precedent for that to happen. It was discussed that meetings could be done in shifts and the transportation could be provided by the district. This demonstrates that conditions for each different program will have to be tailored for each district. So at this point, everything is set up, and the most exciting thing is that 1 week from today, we will have our first mentoring session between West Harrison High School and North Gulfport Elementary. We will have 2 different mentoring programs going on at 2 different schools. So stay tuned, and as always, thank you all for your continued support.
All right, good job. Dr. Locke, y'all, you do not have to sit here through the whole meeting, so, if y'all would, feel free to stay. If you'd like to, you can slip back down to the same cool coast that we have here in Jackson today. The weather's all the same, so, again, glad to have y'all with us. We've had 2 subcommittee meetings, one of which was the Academic Achievement Pre-K-12. This got to be the longest subcommittee title in the whole country. The Academic Pre-K-12 Early Childhood Subcommittee met yesterday via Teams. Dr. McGehee, Ms. Stroud, and I were present. Our first presentation was from Ms. Wendy Clemens, and we discussed the readoption of the math and English language arts standards. These standards, if you recall, were released for feedback last summer to K-12 teachers across the state. The feedback received was vetted by committee, and minor changes were made to the standards. Those standards are on the agenda today to begin the APA, the Administrative Procedures Act process, and will come back to the board for final approval in March. So that's the first thing we'll need to look at going into the March meeting. Dr. Jill Dent's already been mentioned once today, but also at that meeting yesterday was working through the guidelines for serving classrooms of 3- and 4-year-old children. This went back to us in December, if you recall, and will come out for the Administrative Procedures Act process in February to approve the temporary rule and adopt a change made for the school year to the assessment. In March, the guidelines will come before the board to begin the APA process for comprehensive changes that will go into effect next school year. So again, to that entire staff and the work that they've done, thank you. The product is very strong, and the changes made were much needed. So we look forward to the APA process and bringing them back to us. Also meeting this week was Mary Warner and her team with Workforce, Career, and Technical Education.
Thank you very much. I actually have a rather short presentation because Brett Robinson is going to be giving us the Perkins Report, which he went over with us, and he knows far more than I. But Mr. Farrell and Mr. Robinson both did presentations today, and Mr. Mayo was present. One of our members was out sick today. But anyway, we talked about support of MDE to help within districts, specific schools, not just entire districts, so that they could have improvement, which is important, because I think a lot of times we just do the district and then some of the other schools fall away. If you've got, I think the example that Mr. Farrell gave was, if you are in like a C or B district, but you have schools that are maybe D or F within that district, they get homed in on. We also talked about, there are 2 F districts, and MDE leadership team is really, they've got an improvement plan. So they're not going to be F districts for long, I have a feeling after listening to these guys tell us what they're doing. And then I have one announcement. It says, okay, they have been approved for a, tell me if I've got this correct, a workforce coordinator position. And it's going to be based here at MDC. You can tell my Boston background, MDE. And they're going to work with school districts, career coaches. And it's going to be called, and it's a term I just learned today, educator in residence. That's what the term will be for the position. And I guess it's going to be in coordination with Mississippi State. Did I cover that, gentlemen? Okay, fabulous, thank you. And we also are going to hear today from Brett Robinson with the Perkins revisions. So I am not going to even go there. I'm going to leave that up to him. But again, as I always say, these guys do all the work. I just get to report. So, thank you, gentlemen.
Very well, thank you. Great job. You have before you the consent agenda. For those that are new to us, we receive our board packets early. We're able to go through, ask questions of staff and so on, and then we do a large number of items on consent. So before we begin our meeting concerning all the things we pass each week concerning education in our state, do I have approval for our consent agenda, or does anything need to be taken off at this point? All right, motion to approve. Mr. McGehee, Mr. Jacobs, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? I think I failed reading in third grade or something here this week, so we'll. So our first action items, we have an information piece on the progress of our strategic plan. Dr. Evans.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You have in front of you a folder that actually it says Strategic Plan Annual Progress. In that is the annual report that I was bragging on earlier, as well as a copy of this presentation. I believe there's a copy. Yeah, I know there's a copy of this presentation that if you wanted to make notes on. Additionally, there is a copy of Strategic Plan. And then the other two pieces that are in this are the supporting material. So I won't necessarily refer back to these. The information in this presentation is based on this information. But this, if you need any more in-depth, into the weeds, if you will, information that's in here, but also all you got to do is ask. You know, we'll talk through it and get you anything you need. Again, this is the annual report on the strategic plan. We all know that a strategic plan is what guides the organization. I have always attributed the success of the organizations I've been lucky enough to participate in on that strategic plan, because if we don't know where we're going, we don't necessarily know what the outcomes are, and we're just kind of wandering. And it causes us to waste resources, and it causes us not to hit our targets and not to, as I always say, move the needle. And we want to move it, but we want to move it at a very fast pace. That's our goal, because what we do impacts obviously the entire state and all of our little people, all of our students. So again, you know the vision and mission. I'll read it. The vision: to create a world-class educational system that gives students the knowledge and skills to be successful in college and the workforce, and to flourish as parents and citizens. The mission: to provide leadership through the development of policy and accountability systems so that all students are prepared to compete in the global economy. And boy, has that economy changed over the years. Education has evolved tremendously. I say that all the time. 20 years ago, you wouldn't have had the state superintendent speaking at MEC's Capitol Day. People didn't understand that correlation between, they understood it, but it had not, had gotten so intertwined, that correlation between workforce and the K-12 world. I'm not going to read each of the goals because we're going to refer to those as we go through the presentation. But again, like I said earlier, there's no doubt that the strategic plan highlight the areas of focus for the district, and the way this is laid out, thank goodness for Miss Jean Cook. She is so wonderful as far as helping me put these things together and put the speaking pieces we put together. She is such a great asset. And her idea was to shorten this to some extent, outline the goals and the work, the success and accomplishments. But, you know, I'm one of those type people that even though we have success, I don't tout successes without also outlining the areas of focus that we need to continue to develop, if you will. So you'll see those at the end of each of the goals. So again, on page 5, if you will, this is just everyone's seen this slide over the previous years. We know this is a quality counts report card, and you know our grades for 2023. So I'm not going to read through that, but I will make one point. This is the last year for the Quality Counts report card. Education Week is discontinued this report card, so for whatever reason, I don't really know. But obviously, we are measured in many ways other than this one. This is just one place where that was a compilation of all the pieces. One notable point is at the end of the month, you will see the NAEP results come out. So we've sent our team to DC to, I believe it was a 3-day intense session, if you will, extremely intense session. I didn't realize how in-depth that it was. To analyze the results, obviously all those are under embargo, and I mean like strict embargo. So those results will be released. I feel good about it. So, and the reason why I feel good is I know our people work hard in Mississippi. So I know we're going to do the things we have to do to be successful. So goal 1. All right, that goal, all students scoring proficient and showing growth in all areas assessed. So the first slide you'll see is the 3rd grade reading outcome, and I'm going to read that outcome as we look at the graphic, if you will. Outcome 1, increase the percentage of students who passed the 3rd grade reading assessment on the first administration in each subgroup. And what you'll find here is it's the initial versus the final pass rates. And if you're going from left to right on the graph, 2019 to 2024, you see those. One of the issues that I've seen that we see with this is those numbers are remaining relatively flat, and that's not acceptable for us. So while they are good, they are flat. So we are implementing some pieces, and you'll see some processes, and you'll see this on areas of focus to increase those scores. And what you'll see, that's also linked back to the reason why we're trying to expand the reading initiative that we have in the state. So just a couple quick points. The 3rd grade reading initiative and final pass rates have remained, like I said earlier, flat since the pandemic. One piece that I do want to point out, though, 3rd grade reading proficiency has increased from 2019 to 2024, 9.4%. We went from 48.3% in 2019 to 57.7%. So even though we have seen that relatively flat line, it is important to mention that proficiency is a higher bar than passing, and that's related back to proficiency. So that's a very important piece to bring out. So again, it's one of those deals where the numbers don't necessarily tell the entire story. So the next slide, look, the outcomes there, it's associated back to outcome 2 and 3, increase the percentage of students proficient and decrease the percentage of students their scoring levels 1 through 3 on statewide assessments and high school end-of-course assessments. What you'll see there in that, again, that's 2019 to 2024, and you see those from left to right, mathematics, ELA, science, and U.S. history. And you see those increases in proficiency at the bottom. One really important piece to note is Mississippi is one of only 10 states that have continued and shown improvements in reading and mathematics on their statewide assessments. So those other states, Alabama, California, Florida, Indiana, South Dakota, Virginia, West Virginia. So we're one of 10. So that's a huge. I attribute much of that to, as we came out of the pandemic, how hard we were pushing. And also we were committed to putting students safely back in school as quick as possible. And that's paid off. I mean, that's paid off. Plus the fact that Mississippians, when you put a task in front of us, we have a tendency to go not just accomplish it, but surpass it. So the next slide is a comparison of grade level results from 2022 to from the 22-23 to 23-24 year. What you'll see here in this chart Again, mathematics to the left, ELA to the right, and down the side, grades three through the end of course assessments. You see the overall increases. Now, we had some positives and negatives here. Something that's important is the overall proficiency rates improved, but there are some variabilities in the gains and losses by grade. For example, just one piece, 5th and 8th grade math showed more than a 9-point increase or gain, but English 2 saw a 4-point decrease. So, but other than those outliers there, any decrease is fractional. Like, for example, grade 5 ELA was 0.5%. Excuse me, that was grade 6. Grade 5 was 0.25%. So they're very minimal, and you're going to see those fluctuations. You know, anybody that's worked in the school business and understands the data that's associated with it, it fluctuates. The goal is for it to not dip. That's very important, to continue to grow, but there will be ups and downs and fluctuations in it. So slide 10, the outcome here, this is associated with outcome 4, is to increase the percentage of students demonstrating growth on statewide assessments in each subgroup. So you have to kind of let this slide roll around a little bit and think about it, because what the goal here is to make sure that we continue to grow within each, within ELA and mathematics within the subgroups. So what we saw, I went back and looked, we had exceptional growth coming out of the pandemic. We know this. So just for a couple of examples, from 15 to 16 school year, we saw overall for ELA, we saw 57.5% growth, 17, 18, 60.7%, transitioning over to 22, 23, the previous year. We were at 64.3%, and you see this year we're at 61.4. So here's something that's important. We got, like I said earlier, it's very difficult to maintain that straight up growth path, if you will. So that's why you're seeing some of these fluctuations in growth. And what I would, something else is very important to point out. Again, we saw that exceptional growth coming out of the pandemic, but the other piece is we're returning back to the normal rate of growth in Mississippi. And we do anticipate that that return, I don't want to use the word regression, because it's not a regression. It's a return back to the normal growth pattern. We will, more than likely, we're predicting somewhat of a dip this year as well. So it's one of those things to where you see a negative and a red number, but there are lots of factors that are associated with it. So
It's still growing, it's just growing slower.
Yes, thank you. Yes, sir. Very good point. Very good point. So again, I meant to say this earlier. Anytime you have a question, just say it.
We will.
Say it, yeah.
We will.
Just say it. All you got to do is ask. All right, couple focus areas there on Goal 1. Within Goal 1, and these particular focus areas deal with academic ed, special ed, and student assessment. So some of the ways that we're planning on continuing to push forward on these areas that we're calling focus areas. We're going to continue to provide science of reading training for teachers and administrators. Facilitate the Mississippi Educator Preparation Program Literacy Network. In that, what we're doing is creating professional training for our pre-service teachers. Also, continue to provide professional learning materials and adoption around high-quality instructional materials. That, in the last couple of months, I've really tried to educate myself on the high-quality instructional material piece. And I'll tell you, it makes a difference. Especially, you'll see this in our lower grades lots of times. And if you're in a district that there is a lot of transiency of teachers, a lot of maybe younger, less experienced teachers, it makes a big difference. I mean, we're tracking the progress of this. We're looking at it from an individual district standpoint who have the high quality instructional materials in their academic achievement. So we're correlating that together. It's very important that we are measuring the support we're providing, and we want to make sure that what we're doing is, like I said earlier, moving the needle. Very important that we do that. The next to the last bullet, continue the special education mentoring and induction program for new teachers. Districts apply to participate and we are in the second year of that program. And I do get lots of very positive comments about this program all over the state, because that is being a sped teacher. It's obviously very different than being a normal classroom teacher, because you're juggling lots of other issues, I guess, if you will. So, and having to maneuver a lot of different processes. So, the last piece here is we are in the process of issuing an RFP for a new statewide assessment system to be implemented in 25-26. Just one or two little pieces there. We are looking at moving from that 10-year assessment window to a 5-year assessment window, which I think will make a difference. Looking at changing we're working with the Accountability Task Force, obviously. It's not like Dr. Vanderford and I just sit up here and make decisions and impose it on everyone. Looking at some of the methodology as far as the distribution of A through Fs. The end of the month, I think it's the 29th or 30th maybe, have another Accountability Task Force meeting, and those have been very productive meetings. The last two have been some of the most productive I've participated in. So, done a lot of work there as far as moving the needle forward as far as the assessment. So, all right, goal two. Goal two, every student graduates from high school and is ready for college and careers. So what you'll see is the next slide revolves around the graduation rate. Just to read that outcome, increasing the percentage of students graduating from high school ready for college and career ready in each subgroup. You see, we have outperformed the national average since 2020 when you see it, when you really saw us eclipse it there and continue to grow every year. And obviously have reached a point of 89.4%. Very proud of that number. That has been, even though I know we begin on this graph measuring in 2013, increasing graduation rates in a district are difficult. Increasing graduation rates across an entire state is a huge lift, because obviously the entire state is impacting the bottom line, if you will. So to move that from 74.5% to basically almost 90, in Lance math, I round it up if it's a positive, right? So I round it down if it's a negative. So it to almost 90% there. That's a huge lift. But something that's very important that I want to mention is very important to me. It should be very important to everyone. Is during that time, graduation rates for students with disabilities has more than tripled. That's a huge number, to 70%. So yes, sir.
I was just going to say, to every fourth grader in the state, the 4 goes down, okay? So Lance math's okay here.
That's why I said it's Lance
But at the
math.
end of the day, fourth graders, remember that 0.4 makes it go back to that 89. Okay?
Yeah, please, do as I say, not as I do, right?
Our opening prayers are helping our kids. Let's just make sure we clarify that as we
That's
go
why I said
forward.
it's Lance math, right? It's Superintendent Lance math is what it is. Well, it's got like to the 6th decimal point though, right? So we can find a way around it.
89 is great,
There we go.
Superintendent.
All right.
Keep working on it.
Thank you, sir. That's a really good point. I'm proud you pointed out. I don't want people on the live stream thinking I don't know.
All the kids in Gulfport are watching you today.
Again, that's why I called it Lance math. So the next slide deals with. I appreciate that comic relief. I needed that right there.
Yeah, we all needed it.
Yes, sir. The next slide deals with the dropout rate, which we've also made great strides in. Increase the percentage of students graduating from high school ready for college and career readiness in each subgroup. When you look at from a dropout rate standpoint, we did see a slight uptick in 2022, but that's back down to the previous record low number of 8.5%. There's a lot of work that goes into that number. I mean, there's students, as a principal and a superintendent, when students enter the ninth, of course, we have a plan for them all the way through, but when a student enters the 9th grade, they're on all different levels. And we create lots of times like 3, 4, and 5 paths for that student to get he or she graduated. So that's a huge lift. That number right there is equally as important as that graduation rate number, because you have to be so nimble, I guess, if you will, in your approach
Dr.
to
Evans,
get.
do you track why they drop out?
It's it's a multitude of reasons. There isn't like a number. Oh, excuse me, I apologize. There's not a necessarily like a database of that tracks like X percent because of this or X, because it would fluctuate so much. But it's a combination of, to be honest with you, a lot of it is just life. Like I say, life happens. And we do our best to get to them before life happens, and then after life happens, we do our best to get the students graduated to be successful, because it does nobody. It's not good for either one of us for you not to graduate. But there's a multitude of reasons, and I would tell you that those are probably very comparable across the entire state, probably across the entire nation. You know, those reasons. So. But no, ma'am, there's not like, we don't track the reasons why. Might not be a bad idea to try to come up with some way of doing it. I don't know exactly how we would, but that's an idea. Yeah, yes, ma'am. That's a good question too. I could tell you probably about a dozen reasons why, but you know, that doesn't have there's no quantitative numbers that are associated with it. The next outcome is, deals with ACT, and what you're seeing here on this graphic, on the right-hand side, you'll see the average ACT for 11th graders, and the 11th grade administration. You know, every 11th grader in Mississippi takes the ACT. The composite average for the 24 cohort of 11th graders was 17.4. When you look at the 24 graduating class, you see 18.4 as a composite, but you see 18.7 as a super score. They didn't super score when I was coming through. So that, I sure needed it, that's for sure. But again, but then the graph itself within the slide, when you look at the percentage of students meeting ACT benchmarks, you can see the changes from 2023, and you see it's based on top-down, English comp, Algebra 1, social science, biology, and then the bottom data point is students meeting all four. So, and we know those benchmark scores, the benchmark score is a minimum score needed to indicate a 50% chance of earning a B or higher, or a 75% chance of earning a C or higher in that corresponding credit-bearing course at a college or university. I do feel compelled to say one thing right quick though. From nationwide, you're seeing a shift in the conversation away from putting so much emphasis on the ACT. I always say ACT cannot measure someone's willingness to work hard. It absolutely cannot measure someone's willingness to work hard. I'm a living proof of it.
We're sorry, your conference is ending now. Please hang up.
All right. We're done. So ACT must have canceled us.
I disagree with your premise.
Poor old Mr. Miller, he's in panic mode right now. You know that, don't you?
Welcome to AT&T's teleconference service. Press 1 to join your conference. There are 1 participants on the call, including you. You are joining your conference as the host. For a menu of available commands, press *#. Your line is now muted. Your line is now unmuted.
You ever noticed how calm and cool Miss Pamela is every time something happens? She's good. She's good at it. Calm and cool. I appreciate her so much. One other piece before we move on from this slide, I want to mention, remember we did do that ACT, the legislature commissioned a study that the department put together, Dr. Vanderford's office, to look at the ACT, because there was a conversation around moving to the ACT as one of the primary pieces for statewide assessment in Mississippi. we put together that, presentation, excuse me, that study. I believe you've seen it. Don't know if you've had time to read it, and differing opinions there. And of course, they've had that. We met our timelines, made sure that they had the information they needed, and really hadn't had much feedback from that. So just wanted to mention that. Yes, sir.
Also, point of order on ACT, remember, I think we were one of 5 states that require it.
Okay.
I'll take it.
And that's why that statement is very important, is a very important statement. So when you're comparing performance across the nation, remember, if we're one of 5 that's requiring it, and it is, you're absolutely right, it is somewhere in that 5-ish number. We need to be very careful when we say Mississippi's not performing if only 5 states are requiring all 11th graders to take it. So, and also not only, we're also incentivizing it, right? So, next slide, if you will. It's tied back again to outcome 3 and dual enrollment. So, dual enrollment and AP are the 2 primary ways that we deliver college credit to our students in our schools in Mississippi. And some districts have a blending. And a lot of it just kind of comes back to the community and what they want, whether it be dual enrollment or AP. That's what I have seen over the years. But so this slide again, what it is it's the percentage of students participating in and passing dual credit classes. One quick point of emphasis, 95.3% of students passed their course and earned college credit in 23-24. That's an increase from 47.4%, 94, I'm sorry, I flipped my numbers around. That's an increase from 94.7% in 2023. Now, the graphic shows the percentage of students that are participating. So you see the increase, gradual increase, and then those percentages I just gave you were the students that take and pass the course. They take the course and receive a C or higher. So the next slide relates back to AP, IB, and ACE. And you can see the percentages of participation there. And if you want to know when some of these particular pieces, because this is a combination of all 3, the points, the bullets underneath the title of the slide, it actually will show you when IP was added. I got to put my glasses on here. IB was added starting in 17-18. ACE was added in 18-19, and then the 2024 course pass rate overall was 95.4%. So, and you see the percentage of students that are participating as well in statewide as well. Now, one piece before we move on, most of the growth here that you see is from students taking AP courses, because that's the lion's share of the students associated in these graphics will be students that are AP students. So the next slide looks at obviously advanced placement again, and it looks at the number of students taking AP courses and achieving a qualifying score on AP exams. So it's the number of students that take it and have qualifying scores, as well as the number of students that take the actual exam. So I really like this graphic. Some of the graphics, this is like some of the types of graphics that are used in the report as well. I think it's very easy to see here. 24 versus 13. You see the differences in the qualifying scores. You see the differences in the students tested, and you see the differences in the exams that were administered during that time. So, slide 20 deals with ACT work keys, and basically what you see here is a percentage of students scoring at the level of silver or above. Just one quick point of emphasis, want to remind everybody that the state does actually fund ACT work keys. Started that in the 21-22 year. And districts apply for reimbursement. That's how that works, is a pot of money. And when it's out, it's out. But it does help fund the administration of that. And you see those increases in students. The next slide actually looks at graphics basically represent the percentage of students scoring silver, gold, or platinum. So you see 22, 23 versus 23, 24. You see the total number. What I would say is while you see the numbers increasing in gold, platinum, and silver, that proportionally, from a percentage-wise standpoint, they're about the same. So you see the total number increased, you see the change, but overall, you're like, it's minute, the differences in proportionally, so. Next slide looks at college, career and technical concentrators. We used to call them completers. That name has been changed to concentrators. Basically what this is students who take at least two courses, two career and technical courses in the same area of study. And you can see those percentages over the years. It's because of how scheduling has changed and how many things students are involved in today, it's very difficult for a student to be a two-year completer. And then there are also students who go into the first year of the program and realize that's not really what they want. And we do not want them to be a two-year completer if that's not what they want. There would be no reason to do that because they would probably be taking somebody else's seat. So a lot of that comes back to the conversation we had earlier, or the statement I made earlier, around defining what the K-12 role is in CTE and workforce development. So, all right. So goal 2, the focused areas that are associated back with that, from career and technical education and workforce development piece, looking at expanding the industry-based certification and work-based learning program opportunities across the state. As far as students receiving a career credential, a piece that I want to point out is there was an increase there from the 22-23 year to the 23-24 year of 5%. So we went from 49% to 54% of those students receiving that credential. Second piece is creating, like was just mentioned earlier, creating and this is not actually on here, I wrote this in as myself, and Ms. Mary actually alluded to this earlier, creating that position of workforce development coordinator across the entire state. This is going to be a very important position to move this work forward. And it's directly related, it directly relates back to the second bullet, which is creating a K-12 workforce development guide. So that the MDE, the task force we have already created, this was the first meeting revolves around this. And Mr. Robinson, Mr. Farrell's world, as well. We're working with RCU, and there was about, gentlemen, there's like 25, how many people were on that task force? Yeah, it's a bunch. And it represents private business and industry, community college, MEC, Accelerate, you name it. Obviously, school district, CTE, superintendent. So very excited about that. What'll happen is the spinoff of that will be, we'll have the K-12 workforce development plan. You'll have an individual guide. It'll literally be built out in a separate website. Then each of the 8 ecosystems, the MDE and their office will create a strategic workforce plan for each ecosystem based on the school districts that are in it and the business and industry that's there. So that's getting way into the weeds for this type of a presentation, but it's important that you know where that's going. So, and that person will drive all that work, that workforce development. Whoever that person is just doesn't realize how much work they're going to have to do. So, and then also updating the career and technical advisory handbook. So, additional focus areas there in secondary ed is to create a performance-based graduation option. Basically what this is for second semester seniors who have not passed all end-of-course assessments but demonstrate the mastery of all related content. I've said this multiple times. I have a huge issue with a student who comes to school every day, passes the courses, and then has some type of issue and doesn't pass all their end-of-course assessments. And then at the end of the day, we pat them on the shoulder and say, I appreciate you being here for 12, 13 years. So what this is I would say, Ms. Wendy, we're probably 20% and Dr. Boone, about 20% into the process of getting this worked out. It's more complicated than we think, but it's based a lot of it on the methodology and the idea of outlining like performance-based licensures is kind of what the idea was based on, which is a very innovative program and licensing department. So we'll have more information for you there moving forward. So, and also the second bullet here is seek State Board of Education approval for revisions to the Mississippi College and Career Readiness Standards for ELA and mathematics, which I think you probably have before you right now. So, all right, so goal 3. Every child has access to high-quality early childhood programming. Obviously, goal 3 is focused on pre-K and kindergarten. I said this earlier in the shout-out, if you will, that Mississippi is one of only those 5 states that meets all 10 readiness standards through the National Institute for Early Education Research. The next slide outlines the performance for our early learning collabs, our ELCs, and our SIPs. So if you'll look at the chart, the greenish color or green color, that is actually the early learning collabs. And this is all compared, the basis of the comparison is to the other pre-K programs, which are in that orangish color or reddish color. We'll let you decide what color that is. Looks orange to me. So the piece that I want to really point out is that the early learning pieces that the department supports and is over outperform the others. And this isn't like a competition. This is just, the reason why I make that statement is that's why it's so important to continue to fund these early learning collabs. And it's so important for us to get to a point to where we can put universal pre-K in Mississippi. Now that is a very, very expensive endeavor. Therefore, why we have this process we're going through. So, but it's, and the SIP was launched in 23-24, the state investment programming, and you see again, and I should have mentioned this earlier, this graphic is outlining the students and their level of readiness. So, and you see that's the first data point there. We got in 24 because actually the SIP began in 23-24. So, all right, the next slide relates back to kindergarten readiness and growth. And what you're looking at is a comparison of 22-23 to 23-24. And the blue color is the initial assessment, and the green is, excuse me, I should have said pre and post. I apologize. So the blue is the pre-test, and the green is the post-test. And you see those increases, and this deals with kindergarten readiness. Just a point of emphasis that I'd like to bring out is a little over a third of the students in Mississippi start kindergarten prepared. By the end of the year, close to 2/3 meet the targeted score. And this is, again, another reason why we have to continue to push early learning. I mean, there is the effect size of early learning is so much larger than anything. I mean, you're forming the basis for their entire life. I mean, it's huge, huge, huge. So, and again, you see those, another point of emphasis is you see increases in both pre and post assessments in 2023 in both areas. So another great work there. The next slide looks at the percentage of children with disabilities in the general education classroom, in early childhood general education classrooms. A couple of just important pieces here I'll bring out in this graphic. Obviously, the primary objective here is for students with disabilities to learn alongside their peers in the classroom, in the general ed classroom. You do this in a number of ways. Obviously, in the general ed classroom, in some blended classrooms, pre-K classrooms. We'd rather have this because the research shows that students, when they're learning with their peers, the socialization piece as well as the learning piece is much faster than it is in a self-contained classroom. For years, that's how we operated, and because that's what we knew. But thank goodness we don't operate that way anymore. So but these numbers have fell off some over the years. This is attributed for the most part to the fact that coming out of COVID and during the COVID years, if you will, less students were evaluated to receive special services during that time. So not only do we measure it, the state MDE actually has a grant program for blended classrooms that districts apply for. and receive funding to help put those in place in their school district. So you do see that a bit of a dip there, but that is the explanation, is the students that were not identified during that time. So the next slide looks at the percentage of 4-year-olds enrolled in publicly funded pre-Ks. Again, you do see a bit of a dip there. And this is as a whole. That's very important that you understand this. These bars, the graph represents local, state, federally funded pre-K programs. So the state-funded pieces are lumped in here with the others. You did see a bit of a decrease. You also saw a decrease in Head Start. I'm sorry, I had a moment there. So you also saw a decrease in enrollment in Head Start this previous year as well. But again, numbers aren't necessarily don't indicate show the whole picture. A note that I want to make sure that you understand is we did see an increase in students, 4-year-olds enrolled in state-funded pre-K programs. From the previous year to this current year, we saw a 5% increase. So even though you saw a decrease overall across all programs, you saw the state-funded piece increase from 15 to 20% of students. So again, I attribute that to the quality that we provide. Because what you're probably seeing is they're leaving other programming and coming to our programming because, the proof is in the work. It's a great work that's happening there. Turning to the next slide, like I said earlier, a lot of these slides were actually, I had already spoke to them in the superintendent's report, but to go from the original, when the office started, to having 11 early learning collabs in 15-16 to 40 in 23-24 is a huge lift. So you see, obviously this graphic, the metrics here evaluate the quality of each learning collaborative, because not only do we put them in place, but they evaluate. And I will tell you, it's not like a checkbox evaluation. It is a very in-depth evaluation. We are making sure that we are receiving a return on our investment in state dollars and our learning collabs. And that's why you're seeing also the growth. What I will say is you do see a slight decrease though in the percentages, but now what's happened is we've seen a large increase in the number at a very fast pace, and it does take a couple of years to get everything in order. It's like starting a business. It takes a little bit of time to get where you need to be, and it takes the training. Of course, the training is constant and in-depth training, but it takes a little time. So that is attributed back to that, like I said, that very quick increase in the number of collabs. All right, so goal 3, the focus areas. 3 bullets here. Assist, excuse me. And this first bullet attributes back to the graphic you just saw. Assist the new early learning collaborative programs with compliance and the early learning guidelines, as well as grant requirements, because those requirements drive the improvement in the readiness rate. All that's geared up around driving that readiness rate, increasing that readiness rate. The second piece is using pre-K development grants. Preschool development grant funds to increase the number of students with disabilities. Again, coming back to the slide, a little purple bars there that was showing the number of students with disabilities that are in our general ed classrooms or blended classrooms, as well as the third bullet is hire more early childhood coaches. So you see this, the thing that's amazing that you see across the entire state that I didn't really realize, or I didn't take time to realize before I was here, was the success that we have and how limited the number of people is that's pulling it off. So in these collabs, and this is actually it's one of our budget priorities that we presented at the House and Senate Ed budget hearings, was to increase the early childhood coaches. Because currently, the increases that we're asking for funding on our current coaches, you have one coach to 26 classrooms. So we're being successful, and that's a very, and it's not 26 students, that's 26 classrooms of students. So that's a lot. And what would happen with this funding piece is it would allow us to decrease that to 1 in 15. Pre-K. Yes, sir.
Is that funding coming from, when people use the tax credit, does it go to fund that, or are you asking for a direct?
Legislative dollars. Yes, sir. I'm sorry. All right. Goal 4. It's focused on and the outcomes of effectiveness, the effectiveness of teachers, quality teachers and leaders in a school district. So I'm not going to read this entire slide. I've just got some points that we'll make about each one of the outcomes, because there's 5 outcomes on this slide. But obviously, all 5 outcomes revolve around Goal 4. Outcome 1 shows that 100% of the districts now are reporting their PGS ratings, professional growth system ratings. And for those of you that, for anyone in the room that might not necessarily be in the education, which I think everybody in here is very much so in the education world, this is how we report our evaluations, final evaluations for our educators, administrators, library, all educators, if you will. So everyone that falls under that. Goal 2 is related to the required assessments of pre-K service, of pre-service teachers to get licensed. Right now, we don't have the data to show this, because there's a bit of a lag in getting that this year. Outcome 3 shows positive movement since last year by the fact that there's been an increase in the percentage of licensed diverse teachers and leaders across the state. We did see a 1.3% increase, and we're at 33.2% of diverse teachers and leaders across our state. It's very important that we do everything we can to increase the proportion of students, of educators, to match the demographics of the students that we have. There is a direct correlation between the student performance and how that happens, and the leaders and teachers that are there. So that's a push that we have in our state, and we're seeing gains. It's difficult on the state level, but it's also difficult, obviously, in the district level, because this is representing the individual districts and what takes place there. And I've talked to talked with some of our EPPs and outlined, the idea of, I really struggle with the idea of other states coming and recruiting our teachers at the teacher recruitment days in our universities. I really have a lot of heartburn about that. Would like to see something in place that prohibits that. I don't not think someone from Texas should be able to come into our universities and recruit our teachers when we train them. If they want to do that, they can have a recruitment fair in their state, and someone can go if they choose to go there. So we put a lot of work into our EPPs, and so and I will tell you, people do not realize, large and in part, outside the education world, that that's happening. But it is literally, some states will come and they will offer a teacher a contract at the recruitment fair. I mean, and it has large bonuses with it. So that's not how we operate here. So we are hurting ourselves by allowing that to. We don't have purview over that, because if we did, I would be asking y'all to eliminate the opportunity for that to happen. So, outcomes 4 and 5 look at reducing the percentage of inexperienced or non-certified teachers in schools that are of high poverty and high minority. While we are seeing upticks, it's not enough, and obviously that's a focus area that you'll see on the back side. The next slide, these aren't necessarily in the strategic plan, but they're very important pieces. These are those pieces that you hear about the most, or used to hear about the most, when you look at licensure. So the licensing call center, the call wait time, because everybody loves to be put on hold, right? Everybody loves. I'm the most impatient human you've ever met. So I just keep hitting the button. Hopefully somebody I'll get a human on the other end of the line. Well, it used to take 30 minutes on average here. That isn't the case anymore. So it's about 3 minutes. That's a huge difference, right? That is customer service. That is customer service at its best. And that is what we're here to do, is provide customer service to our teachers and our districts. As a direct result of this, complaints have decreased from several hundred a month to fewer than 10 in a year. That's a pretty big deal. That's a pretty big deal, Dr. Murphy. Dr. Murphy, that's a big shout out right there. So, also the MECA licensing portal, you see the number of registered users. The most important thing there, I think the most notable thing there is the staff has maintained a 2-day average processing time for licensing applications. Typically, what you find, if there's an issue with a licensing application, it's the person, and they haven't submitted what they're supposed to submit, and they're frustrated. But the bottom line is we still have to submit what we have to submit, right, in order to get it done. It doesn't matter where you are or what profession that you're in, you still have to turn in the required pieces to do that. So, because absolutely no one here is trying to make it difficult for someone to renew their license, I promise you. Nobody, we have enough headaches without creating more of our own. So, all right, so transitioning over, well, actually, we're not transitioning, we're talking about the focus areas for Goal 4. So in some of these, conduct a comprehensive policy review. So basically, you're reviewing the guidelines for the Mississippi educator licensing in K-12, as well as the educator prepared, the EPPs. I'm sorry, I'm struggling getting the words out. I've said a lot of them in the last little bit, the last 30 minutes. So,
45, but go ahead.
yeah. I told you it was going to
It's
take
good
it.
stuff,
I
though.
told you it was
I'm
going to
good.
take a minute.
I'm
I told
good.
you it was going to
I'm
take a
good.
minute. And we've tried to narrow this
It's-
thing as much as possible.
Don't stop.
Oh, no, I'm good.
It's
I feel
important
completely
information.
supported. I'm with you.
I'm behind you.
I know you are too. I mean that. I know you do. And I appreciate it. The second bullet is launch the Educator Workforce Talent Portal. And what in this portal is Mississippi, it basically is a centralized platform for educators to recruit and put jobs. So it's a recruitment platform, which is like a centralized location, which you would think would be out there, but it's not. And sometimes it's very difficult for it's always difficult lots of times for teachers to be able to, districts to recruit teachers. And this is like one centralized place that we can drive everybody to, so that it's a to use old school terms, a job board, but it's much more than a job board. So, the third bullet is create a hybrid instructional program with MPB. This is Mississippi Public Broadcasting. This is something that the Academic House and myself, we're working together. We have put together a proposal and looking at taking 12, actually hiring, and we're asking for an appropriation to do this, and this has been requested on both sides, House and Senate. We've had a lot of support for this. Is the funding proposal piece is for us to hire, the department to hire 12 teachers starting out. It would be a full synchronous instructional program. The content delivery would go through MPB. As far as the delivery, it would be set up. What we would do is we will begin by focusing on ELA and math and basically 10th grade English and Algebra 1 in our high schools, with the potential to impact somewhere in the neighborhood of a little shy of about 6,000 students. And it will be something that the goal is to work this. The goal is for this not to have to take place. But there are students in our state that literally are receiving Algebra 1 instruction through an asynchronous online platform, which people are doing the best they can. So that's not a negative shot towards anybody. It's just they do not have a teacher. And this is a way for us to at least get that content in. Each teacher will be able to teach somewhere in the neighborhood of about 400 students, 400 to 450 students. And we'll break it down based on need, as far as like if a high school's on a 4x4 block versus a 7-period day. They will have to be somewhat flexible with us. It'll be the same teacher every day, and he or she will be providing the instruction. Obviously, we're providing the support for them. And the goal of this, ultimately, the evolution of this process, is to work into a program where our EPPs are supporting it, and we're taking the top 5% of our students, and they have a year-long student teaching experience, and we pay them for that student teaching experience, and we create like a super teacher, if you will. And the rule would be that they can only do this 1 year, because we don't want to take people out of the pipeline. Because in this initial phase, we will take 12 people out of the pipeline, but we have to in order to impact the number of students.
How will testing occur with that?
I'm sorry?
How will testing occur with
It would
that?
it would be the same. It would be linked back to the schools and the districts that they're in. And it'd be like, so Ms. Warner, it'd be like if you were my Algebra 1 teacher and I was in,
God forbid you'd want me as an Algebra 1 teacher.
I wasn't for sure if you would be I took a stab, so it wouldn't be Algebra 1. Let's just say teacher.
How about English?
There we go, English. There we go. And Mr. East, I'm in Gulfport High. Well, obviously my scores would go back, if he was a principal, represent him at Gulfport High. So,
So would I be correcting you online?
I'm
Let's say
sorry.
I gave essay tests.
I'm sorry.
All right, I give an essay test. So I correct the essay tests that are done on a computer. I get them, I grade them, and then give the grades back.
So each district, we're not going to do this to where districts don't have to hire someone. So we're not like replacing, the goal of this is not to save a district money by not hiring a teacher. You know, we will be selective and we know who the teachers are and the schools are and the districts are where the need is. So they will be required to have a human there. Obviously, it's not a certified teacher in that area or they wouldn't need these services. We will use, more than likely, for the most part across the state, people use Canvas as a learning management system, but we'll have a universal learning management system that's associated with it. It'll have to operate a little different, right? I will tell you that 10th grade English teacher is not going to grade 450 essays.
What I was-
Right. Yeah, I knew where you were going with that. Good luck us finding one that would be willing to do that. So it'll be a combination of working with the school district that's there, us delivering the content. It will be, so say a block says 96, 97 minutes, it'll be a full 97 minutes of instruction. The goal, though, here is for it not to be just a smattering of kids. So, like, I don't want it to be, or we'd rather it not be like 400 students per teacher across 50 schools. I'd rather it be X school who does not have an Algebra 1 teacher that's the same teacher the same day, every day with the same students, to form that connection. And if we're successful with it, we'll ask to continue to expand it. And we feel like we've identified actually somewhere within, we need to fact check this to make sure the spot's there. So hopefully we found a place here with MD on state property to house that. So, because it's not a cheap endeavor, but it will impact a large number of students. And then the fourth bullet, did I answer your question, Ms. Mary? Okay. And the fourth bullet is to develop Mississippi Leads. And what this is an initiative to support effective school and district leadership. It is, the best way I would describe it is us going back and and this work has started before I got here. The basis of it has already started. But rethinking the OSL process and like rethinking the leadership training piece from the universities all the way through specific to the assistant principalship, to the principalship, to the district level leadership, to the superintendency piece, because we're developing that superintendent institute, so it will all mesh together. So that's a big lift, but it's one of those things where we have to make sure that the problem isn't a leadership problem, if that makes sense. And I have to make sure that we're providing the support to make sure that happens, because obviously the leadership directly impacts the educators every day. So, so continuing to the next slide, a couple more focus areas for Goal 4 involving career and technical education and workforce development. But integrating workforce development strategies and standards into the professional development for teachers, which is currently happening now. It's like an intertwining, as well as helping administrators to create and sustain industry partnerships. That's another important piece of this workforce development coordinator. He or she, it will be the expectation. My goal is, and I think our goal, let's say, is actually to have ultimately 3 people in that office, one in the north, one in the central, and one in the south. And they will work directly with career coaches. I will say Accelerate they've become a very good partner in this process. I appreciate Dr. Taylor so much and her willingness to to do this. But also, third piece is expand the new teacher induction training program for CTE educators and include counselors and service coordinators. All right, almost, we're getting close. The pages are thin.
Go down, good job. Important stuff, right?
It's very important stuff, and you have to give give it its time, so, because the body of work, all the people in this room are doing it, so. And so I do know it's a long conversation, so thank you for bearing with me. So, goal 5, and it revolves around, the outcomes are focused on, every community effectively using a world-class data system to improve student outcomes. When you say that, basically, the first thing everybody thinks of is MSIS. So, a couple quick points. Again, this slide is much like the slide earlier. I'm not going to read every single outcome. Just to have a couple points of emphasis a point of emphasis about each one. Outcome 1 there shows that the MSIS modernization process is about 95% complete. Outcome 2, and I would like for you to look at the increased numbers of people that have been taking place in the trainings, as well as the number of trainings. I think the success of MSIS with Mr. Cramen has been huge, and his team, the including people in the design conversation and the amount of training has caused it to be successful. Because boy, it could have been very difficult. It could have been very different. The amount of training the in-depth training has been outstanding. I mean, when you look at it, the numbers of people in training in 21-22 were 2,000. In 22-23, look at that uptick. You had 9,081 attendees across 121 training events. And then 23-24, 7,870 attendees across 57 training events. Obviously, as the modernization gets further along, it requires fewer trainings. And there will be fewer people that will be attending, but there will always be the modernization process causes you to have to continue to train. So outcome 3 shows the number of districts who completed an IT audit. Our school districts for years were not under attack, if you will, but they are definitely under attack now from a cybersecurity standpoint. We see this happening all over the nation. It's not just Mississippi. Once people realize that school districts were a wealth of information that someone could take and do bad things with, that's 10 years ago, we didn't talk about cyber insurance. You didn't hear this, and it also was not as expensive as it is right now, but it's because of the people in the banking industry have always dealt with this, right? Federal government's always dealt with this, right? Mr. Cramen and his world, they've always dealt with this, right? But just what's happened in the past is the schools did not have to deal with it to the extent that they currently do. And then outcome 4 shows a number of district personnel, who have received Google admin certifications. So focus areas for goal 5. MSIS, the modernization process, increase the availability and data access and dashboards and implement upgrades based on user feedback. I will also note that whole process is an expensive process, and we have to do that as funds become available. We have to make sure and keep the main thing, and that's keep MSIS up and running because it's the backbone. But we do have to continue to be very mindful of we need to continue to evolve and modernize the process as we move forward. From a cybersecurity standpoint, continue to strengthen data security and privacy through policy, risk assessment, remediation, collaboration with other state agencies and partners, as well as staff training. Mr. Cramen, I think our system is one of the most secure systems in the of any state agency, I believe. Yes, sir. So that's one of those things where you don't realize how important that is until something happens and you realize how important that is, right? And then the other piece that we're kicking off, I think the initial meeting maybe is tomorrow, is an AI piece, establishing an AI instructional support plan. And think of it as more of a task force piece that's led through the department, Mr. Cramen, his staff, as well as educators in the state. So, because right now there's a lot of talk around how AI improves your efficiency, and there are some other places outside of the Mississippi that are working like some large organizations that are working some on instruction. This is geared around instruction and how it impacts instruction, right? Not necessarily how it makes your life easier in your job, because that's kind of the gist of what a lot of the training we see is. So we're gonna have. I mean, it's here and it's not going away. All right, so goal 6, and then there was 1. So and it involves obviously performance. So goal 6 is that every school and district is rated a C or higher. The first slide here, it's related back to outcome 1 and 2, and it's increasing the growth of DNF districts and schools by improving the letter grade or increasing the number of points within each letter grade. So that graph on the left represents districts and on the right represents schools, and it is a percentage of districts and schools that are rated D or F in 2023, and those that improved the letter grade or improved their accountability score. So you see 13 out of 14 districts improved, and you see 74 out of 96, and I always like having a percent there as well. I like it both ways. You need to see the percentage, but what is that percentage really representing so that it's not misleading? So you see the increases there. One quick point, among districts and schools rated D or F in 2023, and you can see this on the slide, 92.8% of the districts and 77.1% of the schools, yes, I said that right, increased their achievement. The next slide looks at the districts of transformation as well as the achievement school district, and it's just a progression of their their increase in academic achievement. I appreciate those superintendents that run those districts. They're very creative and they do a very good job. So we've had the opportunity, Mr. Farrell and his office, to really streamline that work. I feel as though they're very appreciative of it. I know we're very appreciative of it, and it's helping us coordinate across the entire system, across with the districts that are under state control, if you will. So the next slide looks at schools and districts as far as their grade improvements, and we know we're at a good spot here. And we know that the fact that we're at a good spot causes us to have to raise the bar. That's how successful people operate, how successful organizations operate. When we achieve a level of success, well, guess what? We ratchet it up again. That's how we move organizations forward. And I know sometimes people look at you and they're like, why? Well, why is because it's for the betterment of Mississippi. And that answer is it's really easy to answer that question. And anybody that's not on board with it, well, you probably should go somewhere else, right? Because we got to do what's right for Mississippi to move kids forward. I'm not going to bore you with those graphics. You can see overall in the beginning when the board, this is one important piece, and when the board set this goal, 62% of both schools and districts were rated C or higher. Today, 86% of schools and 94% of districts. Last slide here on goal 6 is the focus areas, and it's just implementing an updated accountability system. I spoke to that earlier, of that RFP that's out there. Implementing a comprehensive support system for DNF rated schools based on the updated accountability system in 26-27. So that's in Mr. Farrell's office and that Office of School and District Transformation. That's that transition to a school-based mentality. I tell people all the time, I can speak for our board in this case. You do not want to be the board for any school district. You'd rather not take over a district. Now, we will if we have to, but we sure rather not do that. So, and then creating and implementing leadership training for our low-performing schools and districts. Last piece, partnerships. All this happens, obviously the work of the department, but it also happens through partnerships. And there are a number, I'm not going to read all these partnerships off. They're national partners. And these people are not just partners, they're partners from the work standpoint, but some are also partners from a financial standpoint. And I really appreciate, some are very large contributors to the body of work that happens here. And we appreciate that. And also we have state partners, which is on the next slide. And we all know these partners. They're very strong. In Mississippi, we support public education, and that's why we're successful. So, all right, so this concludes the report. So I didn't set a timer, but I know it probably.
No, but I will say this, that we need to take this document out, and this time next year, it probably should be dirty and have some ketchup stains on it, because at the end of the day, this is what the people in this room work to accomplish. And when they talk about what we do or what our State Department does in education, this is the testimony to the fact that there are hours and hours and hours and hours of work going into taking care of the children of Mississippi. And again, I say this is probably a document that you walk out of here, Ronnie, is somebody asks you a question, you pull to it and say, this is what we've been working on. So if you keep one document all year, it's going to look pretty ugly next this coming December. But that is an hour of time that is very worth for all of us to know what we do every day here in the department and what we as a board try to do to support you as we move forward in our state. Do any board members have any questions or comments concerning?
Thank you.
All right, great work, Lance. I kid Lance a lot of time about time, so I kind of got in the way today, because this is truly important work that they are doing. Our next one is an action item. Long Beach, we have 4 more things, and then our board meeting will be over, so you're going to have lunch downtown somewhere. And Mr. Farrell, come on up. Well done. Good document. Very good document. Get the Gulfport Rotary Club next week. And maybe the Kiwanis Club next door. I got a copy machine.
Thank you, Mr. East and Dr. Evans. Good morning, the State Board. We're going to take just a few minutes of your time to go over our Perkins revision plan. The Office of Career and Technical Education, which is housed in the Office of School and District Transformation, is in the middle of this process to revise our Perkins plan. Once completed, it'll be a 4-year plan, be good for 4 years. Of course, the Perkins is the federal act that was established to support, enhance, and supplement career and technical education across the states. At this time, Mr. Brett Robinson, the Associate State Superintendent over Career and Technical Education, is going to report out to you about the process they're doing right now.
Thank you. All right, we've only got 65 slides, if that's okay. Just kidding. This is going to be quick, and I'm going to kind of skim over some things. I don't want to get too far in the weeds for you, but again, like Dr. Evans said, stop me at any point if you have any questions, and we'll be glad to answer those. Dr. Evans has spent time talking about the vision and mission. I can tell you that our plan is written specifically to match the vision and mission here at MDE. In our office, we pretty much live in goals 2 and 4. I always kind of harp on that with our directors and contact persons and instructors when we meet. And I think you'll see a lot of that throughout this plan. Very briefly, just want to give you kind of a reminder of where we were a year ago, almost today, when we brought you a 1-year revised plan. At that time, we had been notified by the governor's office and by Accelerate Mississippi that Governor Reeves was wanting us to submit a combined WIOA and Perkins plan. And so because of timelines and things like that, we couldn't get that accomplished last year. So the decision that was made was we would just do a 1-year, very minimal revisioned plan. And that plan was brought to you January last year. The idea was we were going to spend the next 12 months writing and preparing and submitting a combined plan to you and to the governor's office. We were notified this summer that due to some issues on the WIOA side with timelines and having to do some things on their side, that decision was stepped back from. So what we're bringing to you today is not a combined plan. It is just a Perkins plan. It's a 4-year state Perkins plan. But we did work with Accelerate because we do feel like it's important, just like Dr. Evans has mentioned. We have a very strong partnership with them. And so we did feel like it was important for our plan to reflect some of those goals and expected outcomes that they have there, just so that all the horses are kind of pulling in the same direction. And so that you do have some intertwining of that, but it is not a combined plan as we discussed about a year ago. So the first step in this process is that we have to hold a comprehensive local needs assessment. That was done in September. Talk a little bit more about what that looks like here in just a second. And then at the end of this month, we will submit that report back out to the districts and the community colleges, taking all of the conversations and data that was had in those meetings, putting it all kind of together, and then sending that back out to them. And so that will serve as basically their strategic plan, the CTE strategic plan, as they make programmatic decisions at both the secondary and the post-secondary level. And then in May, our CT local application will be due. That is where we'll start the process actually in February, where districts will begin filling out their applications for program conversions or new programs. And then we'll make those final decisions in May as we know more what funding is going to look like. So the way we did those comprehensive local needs assessment basically worked with Mississippi Community College Board, took our community college map and divided the state into 3 regions. Each of those regions then, the partnering school districts with those community colleges, we met. We had big meetings. And so we had September 5th, we met at Itawamba Community College with those 5 community colleges and their school district partners. September 13th at Hines with those community colleges, their partners, and then again on the 17th with those community colleges and their partners. The way that process works is it's a day-long meeting. We start that morning with kind of a state of where we are with CTE, both at the secondary and post-secondary level. And we start at really a 30,000-foot view of this is what's happening in the state of Mississippi. As the morning progresses, we have different groups that come before them, Accelerate Mississippi, Build Mississippi, and then the regional workforce development boards. They come and present about what the needs are they're seeing for that region. So we start really state level, and by the time we get to lunch, we have drilled down specifically to those regions of the state, to those community college communities and districts about what the needs are. After lunch, they break off into their respective community college and their high school partners, and the conversation really, that's where the meat of the meeting happens. We gave them these 5 questions to drive their discussions in their individual breakout sessions. I'm not going to read each one of these to you. Basically, what we're talking about here is what you're offering, or what are you offering that's aligned to the needs? How are you working together to ensure alignment between secondary and community college? What barriers are in the way of you working together, and how are we addressing those? And then the last 2 questions, what are you offering that's not part of the needs assessment that data shows there's not really a need for that? What are you not offering that the data shows there is a need for? And so we take that data then again and we put that together at the end for a
Brett, on
comprehensive.
4 and 5, those needs assessments are regionalized, right?
Yes, sir.
You could have the northwest corner, 4 counties that have something totally different than
Totally
the
different.
southeast corner.
Correct.
And so our data is based on those businesses in those counties.
Yes, sir. So not only are there secondary districts, school districts and community college, we also had business partners and the workforce development groups from each of these regions that were part of these meetings as well. And so like you said, this conversation right here is being had by Hines Community College and their partner schools. Holmes Community College, their partner schools. Mississippi Gulf Coast, their partner schools. So you're very right that the conversations of what comes out can be very different based on where they are regionally. And so in the report, we tried to kind of separate that out by region.
How much, the SWIB board, how much guidance are they trying to provide in the collection of that data as far as a state?
Yeah, so I work very closely with Cliff Timms at Accelerate to help provide, we're always back and forth with data of looking at those different things, looking at the performance, taking those applications for different SWIBs based off where they are in the state, where do we see a need, how large is that need? And so I can tell you that back and forth between us and them as it relates to these needs assessments, it's a weekly thing.
Okay. So I guess to make that point clear, Harrison County wants to work with widgets because that's what we have several manufacturers doing, working with widgets. And nothing can keep that Harrison County from working with that leader to produce students that can work to help manufacture widgets, right?
Correct.
And the funding cannot be really halted, increased, decreased?
If you're talking about a new program, the funding would depend on what comes through, what comes through the legislature, comes through the funding for our office. If you're talking about creating a new type of program, but we're creating some means to try to work around that a little bit to get a little more flexibility in being able to start new programs.
I just know that Mississippi is a lot like Tennessee, and you've got three very distinct regions who
Right.
who do different types of work in those regions. And I just want to make sure we're staying.
And so it should be kind of coming out, probably the next couple months, about a new course code that's for an emerging program area, where if you have a specific need in Harrison County that's maybe not everywhere else, but we don't have a curriculum for, this is an opportunity for you guys to work with your partners to say, hey, here's what we're trying to do, and then we can work together to get you that opportunity.
You've just verified what I've been told,
We
so
actually
thank you very much.
We encourage those partnerships.
Right.
Yes, and that would be like an application process. The school district could fill out an application, submit it here, have probably which would come from that particular business, a curriculum type, so they're going to follow, we'd review, and then that program would be approved be the one program in the state like that.
I'm good. Thank you all very much for that.
Yes, sir. So these are mainly, again, we didn't really overhaul the plan, but really kind of these are the three main areas of revision where we went in and made some tweaks. Dr. Evans has already talked about the goal and intention for us to expand our SWIB list, expand embedded work-based learning and apprenticeship opportunities within our existing pathways. We're also looking at an increase in percentage of CTE concentrators. And so, as we mentioned, a concentrator is a student who is about to finish a career pathway. They're enrolled in the terminal course for a CTE pathway. What we see across the state, and really you kind of see this across the nation, is that about 36% or so of your CTE students actually become concentrators. They actually finish a pathway. We're going to work to see, put some things in place to see if we can increase that percentage to get students all the way through a pathway. And then the big part, really, which was the main part of the update, is updating our performance targets that I'll show you here very quickly. Not going to read this whole slide, but these are the performance targets federally that as a state we're held accountable for. In turn, as a state, we hold the districts accountable for these same performance targets. Number one is just CTE concentrator graduation rate, and each one of these is pretty much based off of your concentrators, okay? So the graduation rate of your concentrators is number one. Number two, there's actually three of those there, but that is the percentage of CTE concentrators that scored proficient on English 2, algebra, and biology. A little bit of a thing here, because for most students, they take those tests before they ever enroll in a CTE course. They're taking those in 9th grade. Majority of our CTE students across the state are 10th, 11th, and 12th graders. So this is one that causes a little bit of heartburn because we're being held accountable. Districts say we're being held accountable for kids that we didn't even know we were going to get yet. We understand, but that doesn't stop us from being able to provide support to those students in the terms of ELA, math, and science, so that we can try to strengthen those skills and strengthen that foundational knowledge as they progress through CTE programs. Number three is just placement. Where are those students after they graduate, your CTE concentrators? Number four is our percentage of students who are in non-traditional fields. So think about a female in construction or welding. Think about a male in health sciences or education prep, things of that nature. And then the last two, the percentage of students who are taking and passing, or percentage of concentrators, I'm sorry, taking and passing credentials. And then the last one, students who are meeting all the requirements of embedded work-based learning. So the way that the U.S. Department of Education has us do this is you create a baseline. The baseline is the average of your last 2 years of data. So you'll see what our baseline there is for each one of those indicators. And then you can see what our performance targets are being set at for the next 4 years. And these are proposed targets. These targets were discussed also during those local needs assessment meetings to get feedback from the districts and community colleges. And so for each one of those, we really just looked at about 1/10 of a point of increase over each year until you get to the last two, the 5S1, the 5S3. That's the credential and the embedded work-based learning. You can see that we have a little more aggressive approach to meeting those targets, and that's really because we're already performing at those levels. So for example, Dr. Evans mentioned, we have a baseline of 29.3% for our credential, but last year we performed at 54%. So what we're trying to do is align, and this is one of those things with it working in partnership with Accelerate, was trying to push our districts to be, and our students to be a little more successful in those areas. And so we wanted our goals and our percentages to match that. Finally, just what this process is. So you guys will vote on this today. After that, it will go to, if you approve it, it will go to public comment for 30 days. After public comment, we respond to each one of those public comments that we get. If there are no changes that are needed after looking at public comment, it then goes to the governor. The governor has 30 days to approve it. He does not have to approve it. It is not required, but it is required that it be on his desk for 30 days. Traditionally, we always get an approval from him for that. And then as long as there are no substantial changes needed, it will not have to come back to you. It will be submitted to USDE in May. Any questions?
Questions?
Yes, sir.
Great presentation there, Mr. Robinson. Looking forward, since we appear to be receiving a bunch of interest about our data systems coming into our state, the announcement of Lauderdale, landing situation there, and of course the ones in Madison County. Have anybody in that arena reached out to you for potential employees going forward?
So we've had some meetings with AWS. I've been a part of some conversations with them, and we know about, their expansion and whatnot. I'll tell you right now, a lot of that is driving, so we're looking at our information technology. Well, let me take this opportunity to apologize for the plethora of backup material for our consent item for the number of curriculum. I know, Dr. McGehee, you probably spent the weekend reading every single one of those.
Absolutely.
So I apologize for that, but that's kind of an annual thing. We're working through your next set that you'll see in January next year. But information technology, which is really aligned to that, is part of that this next revision cycle, and we're looking at how we can expand that curriculum to meet some of those needs with AWS, with cybersecurity. We even have a task force going on right now with looking at some broadband construction options of fiber splicing and things like that. So we're really kind of taking what we're seeing with this growth that's occurring with business industry and how that's going to translate to us. And I think a big part of that too stems back to what Dr. Evans was saying about really working to define what this K-12 CTE world looks like and what the intended outcomes are and how that translates to post-secondary.
Yeah. That was the basis of my widget question. I just
Right.
used Harrison County as the, I also will tell you that one of the failures we had in Gulfport when we making our move, we felt like every child would walk across the stage knowing what they wanted to do when they graduate. That's probably the same percentage that you're mentioning on completers. But the big thing is they do know what they don't want to do, and that's also part of the battle too, going into college. So let's not, I know we got federal guidelines, but let's not forget the fact that these are 16, 17, 18-year-old kids.
That is the exact point
and knowing
I
what you
made.
don't want to do probably is, if not more important, is equally important to what you
Correct.
think you want to do when you leave. So thank you all for this work. And yeah, I enjoyed the curriculum piece and the consent items over there. Any other questions from the board? Under the Office of Chief of School and District Transformation Officer, do I have a motion to approve? Mary. Second, Ms. Barrett. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Dr. Gavin?
Thank you.
Good morning. We have two items coming before the board for approval under the contracts, item 3A. One is for a contract with the Mississippi State Department of Health, and that contract is for the Department of Health to provide the inspections for our summer feeding programs across the state. And then action item B is to modify a contract with Tennessee Book Company, and Tennessee Book Company is the company that provides our textbook inventory management system.
Any questions on those two items? Yes, Matt?
As presented.
I got a motion to approve. Second? Mary. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Those carry. On the Office of Chief Operations Officer, we've got that done. We're now to our consent agenda, it looks like here. Motion to approve the items, make sure I got this right here, 0 and 3. Items 4, no, that's right, hold on just a minute. Donna, you have to present this item 4, don't you? You're good, under consent. Y'all, I'm sorry, that's twice, that's 2 meetings in a row, I got all confused here. So we have below for our consent agenda, motion to accept those as presented.
So moved.
Ronnie, second. Wendy, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Donna, for keeping me in line there. Do we have to, need to consider executive session?
No, sir.
All right. Anybody want to report on meetings they have attended or we're planning to need to go to?
I would like to make a request for permission to attend the National Forum in the future of Assessment and Accountability in Dallas, Texas in February, on February 18th through the 21st. I've been contacted by them and it looks a very informative national curriculum they've got.
Any questions for Mr. Geehee? All in favor? Got a motion?
So moved.
Matt, Billie Jean, second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We're good there. Ronnie, we got Massa and Mass coming up.
Right.
How about passing those dates?
Mass, do we need to have that approved?
Yeah, let's go ahead. Anybody that wants to attend Mass or Massa, we can do that in one joint piece. Motion to do that. Mr. McGehee, Mr. Mia, second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I highly recommend you make one or both of those. Any other reports from meetings attended? Anybody else have a meeting they'd like to go to? The February board meeting will be held on February the 20th here in Jackson, Mississippi at the Central High School building in the 4th floor boardroom starting at 10 o'clock. Motion to adjourn. Billie Jean, second Wendy. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Matt, I hope you're feeling better, man. Have a great one. Take care. Thank you very much for your service, board members, and to the staff, thank you very much. Bearcat Nation, thanks for hanging in there with us.
Yeah.